I guess it should go without saying that in a job interview, you sell yourself on your successes, right? On your strengths, if you want. Yet still, I found that a significant number of you have a tendency to shoot yourself in the leg with various techniques. And I'm going to talk about 3 such scenarios next. First of all, is when you are part of a 3-year project, for instance, and you made a significant contribution in the first 6 months of that project. That's where you shined, right? After that, it was no longer that interesting. Well, if this is the case, then you talk about a 6-month project, right? Eventually, you mentioned it was in the context of a larger job in your larger role in your whole life, right? But the successful part were those 6 months that you would like to highlight on. You would like to add some interesting frameworks, some numbers, some metrics, something to ideally make it more memorable, right? But long story short, focus only on the successful part of that story, even if you want to make a long, convincing first answer, as I usually recommend, right? And even if you want to sell yourself as a think big or a deep dive, if you want, still it's very possible on the condition that you talk about what's successful and you sell yourself as a successful candidate or a successful employee in your previous roles, right? The second thing I'd like to talk about here is in a scenario where you want to emphasize a challenging environment, right? Like, for example, you had some tough stakeholders, colleagues, or you had a lack of budget. You essentially dramatize somehow your story in the beginning. Now, if you talk about the star format, you replace the task with a challenge if you want. That's excellent advice, if you want to add a bit more punch to your story. However, the extreme of that is some people tend to, unfortunately, use that dramatization throughout their answers until the end and eventually end on a negative note, right? So if you add the dramatization at the beginning, you should still try to end on a positive note and sell yourself as someone successful, right? And try to convey positivity in that example in spite of the dramatization you added in the beginning, right? So, and simplest way to put it is always ensure you end on a positive note, right, in this context. And the third thing where you have a tendency to shoot yourself in the leg is to simply speak about failure stories, even if they don't ask you for a failure story. A simplest example, tell me about a challenging delivery. And some people would choose to talk about a failure, an outright failure. Now, I believe this is, common sense that you wouldn't want to talk about failure unless asked. But still, there are some people, truth be said, there are some exceptional candidates, people who really know what they're doing and they really shine at interviewing, who could sell themselves with their failures because they had some amazing learnings from those stories. However, this is a very small percentage of people. I rarely encounter such people and who have the guts to do this in a job interview with a high-performing company, right? So, long story short, don't talk about failure unless asked, right? And again, if I ask you, tell me about a deliver a challenging project, this doesn't mean I ask you about the failure stories. Asking you still about success story. And there's even people who, even if explicitly asked, tell me about the time when you failed, they sugarcoat it somehow and they refuse to talk about failure, right? I don't recommend this. But still, in the context of a job interview being about your successes, you should really keep this in mind. And I'm especially talking to you if you're the type to prepare 20 or 50 stories in your story bank and you, prepare 50 pages, with your stories. Still, I believe you must convey that positivity and the fact that you are someone who's successful on a consistent basis as a candidate, right? So I hope you found this useful and thank you very much for watching.